before this video gets started, I want to say that this is a collaboration between me, Misery, the person who originally made it, who I wasn't unable to get in contact with at like the first quarter of this video, and Ghosty off of Reddit, who has been so helpful with giving me information, and also he recorded some of the voice lines for this too. And this little intro bit is also from Misery, so I thank him for that as well. But just wanted to get that out of the way before the video gets started. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Another quick little disclaimer before this video starts. I know we don't need two of them, but I got a new microphone midway through recording this, and not everything is going to be recorded with it, but I can guarantee anything that is layer 4 or lower on the Iceberg has been recorded with the new microphone, with a couple of exceptions earlier on in the video because I was unhappy with how it was recorded.
Call of Duty Zombies, one of the most recognizable examples of modern-day gaming. A game mode that many people are still extremely nostalgic for and play religiously to this day. And yet, fewer and fewer people seem to be interested in the more technical aspect that comes with the game, as Easter eggs and lore clearly dominate the discussion. That's why I've gone ahead and created this Iceberg.
Just a quick little interjection in this intro. In case you don't know, an iceberg, such as this one, is basically a bunch of information about a given topic arranged from top to bottom in an iceberg format, being that the tip of the iceberg is information many would know, and as you get lower it becomes more and more obscure. Sorry about that, but now we can continue.
It contains tons and tons of trivia, ranging from pretty well-known facts to pretty obscure things that you may have never heard about. So hopefully this way I can shine some light on this very oftentimes overlooked aspect of zombies. My name is Misery, and let me be your guide as we delve deep into the waters surrounding the Call of Duty Zombies Iceberg. Please enjoy. So before we begin with our first topic, I do want to let you know that I'm not going to be doing the weird health system that a lot of other YouTubers do with these kind of videos. I made the Iceberg, so I'm literally 100% certain of what I'm talking about. I might not get every single piece of information 100% correct, but if I do get something wrong, please do feel free to correct me in the comment section below. I'll probably edit it into the description then, or maybe I'll even make a follow-up video if I get that many things wrong. But yeah, let's get into our very first topic, horde ups and rape training. Okay, I think everyone knows what hordes/trains are, so I won't explain it, but what I can do is give you a little history lesson. You see, here's the thing. Hoarding up wasn't really the established meta until Black Ops 1 had come out. In World at War, it was kind of the norm to just camp somewhere on the map. For example, I think everyone knows about the Nacht camping spot right next to the grenade wall by, or of course the catwalk on the Rees. But when Black Ops 1 came out, and specifically Ascension, with the open areas that were available to players, people started to realize it's a lot safer and a lot smarter to just walk in a nice circle and get all the zombies behind you and then shoot them. This way, you A, wouldn't get overrun, and B, would be far more efficient with any of the wonder weapon ammo that you'd have. Okay, so then let's move on to the next topic, that being the Black Ops 3 255 round cap. So for those that don't know, Black Ops 3 has a round limit of 255, which is pretty much unbeatable. Even if you do beat the round, it will just reset back to 255. It's never ending that way. The reason it's there is because Treyarch thought they would never have players get to that point, and so they use an 8-bit system for the counter, meaning that the highest number that can be displayed with 8 bits is 255. Funnily enough, there used to actually be a time where Treyarch thought that players wouldn't even get to 100, and so the round counter would stop working past 99. It would literally just display 00. I'm not making that up. Who remembers that? That shit was fucking hilarious. But yeah, it just goes to show Treyarch has no idea what the community is capable of. And let's just say the leaderboards for Black Ops 3 high rounds are just a bit of a joke. But yeah, let's move on to the next topic. Knifing wields more points. This has been part of the core gameplay loop from the get-go, and I'm pretty sure it's the same all the way up to Cold War. Essentially, if you deal the finishing blow to a zombie with a melee attack, you will get more points than you would with, for example, a body shot or a headshot. Most zombies maps are made of multiplayer assets, so this is only partially the case, as there are also a lot of maps that are made of campaign assets, and the reason this is done is pretty much to save time and resources, as it's a lot easier to just copy paste stuff in and try and build a map around them. I'll put some examples on screen so you know what I mean, as seeing some of these images is definitely going to make it very clear that these were in fact reused assets.
Thank you for that intro, Misery. Well, now we're moving on to Quick Revive disappears on solo. In every Treyarch Zombies, except for Cold War and Black Ops 4, when you played solo, you could only grab Quick Revive 3 times before it would disappear from the map and you would no longer be able to purchase it. In games like Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, if Quick Revive disappears, the only way you could get it after that was from the Wonder Fizz or from a random perk bottle drop, or in Black Ops 3's case, you could also get it from a Gobble Gum. Another quick little disclaimer, I will try and match the video style that Misery has laid out, but I cannot guarantee it will be exactly the same. Now reload before max ammo. Up until the release of Black Ops 4, the way max ammo worked is that it would give you max ammo, but it wouldn't refill your magazine, so if you wanted to get, the best out of your max ammo, you had to reload first. And on to the next one here, reload canceling. Reload canceling is essentially exactly what it sounds like. You would cancel a reload. In all COD zombies before Black Ops 3, you would usually reload cancel by sprinting or switching guns, and sometimes it'd be advantageous to do so, mostly in World at War and Black Ops 1. When Black Ops 3 came out, you could actually reload while sprinting, and every COD since has allowed you to do so. So now the way to reload cancel is to switch weapons or to melee. Pack-a-Punch on transit. How Pack-a-Punch worked on transit was a fucking nightmare. To get Pack-a-Punch on transit, you had to build the turbine, head to power, turn it on, and put your turbine in front of the door that you land in front of when you fell through the outhouse, head all the way to town, blow open the bank vault, blow open the second door, then when you get inside, if the turbine didn't die before you got there, then you'd have to get the parts for it and build it, and then you'd have Pack-a-Punch. It was a total pain in the ass. And let's not forget, if the turbine shut off, the door would close again, so you'd have to go and put the turbine back. Who thought this was a good idea? Proning in front of perk machines. Going prone in front of perk machines in any modern COD will give you 100 points per perk machine, like Black Ops 3, 4, and Cold War. Before Black Ops 3, it was rare to see points from the perk machines. It has only showed up in a very small specific set of maps. It showed up in Derice in World at War for 25. Black Ops 1 also only has it on Derice for some unknown reason, again for 25 points. And in Black Ops 2, it only shows up in Origins, once again for 25 points. Ballistic Knife Pack-a-Punch equals easy revives. The Ballistic Knife, not a very good weapon. In fact, outside of Black Ops 4 and Cold War, it's virtually useless. That is, unless you Pack-a-Punch. When the Ballistic Knife is Pack-a-Punched, you can revive a player by shooting it at them, and you could hit some pretty long distance revives with it, as you could see in this clip here. Only one player can have a wonder weapon. Back in the days of Black Ops 3 and earlier, when someone got, say, the Wonder Waff out of the box, they would be the only person who could have it. It would no longer be obtainable from the box for anyone else. This never affected the ray gun, strangely enough. In newer games like Cold War and Black Ops 4, multiple people can have the wonder weapon, whether they're buildable, can be obtainable via the box, or through a trial. Well, that's all for Layer 1. Let's move on to Layer 2. Now for our first stop on Layer 2, EMP one-hit kills the transit boss. Unfortunately, after over 45 minutes of trying to get him to spawn, he did not, so you'll have to just like this bus depot gameplay. Anyway, back in Black Ops 2, on transit, after you turn the power on, the sky would begin to get very stormy, and the Avogadro would spawn. You know, the electric bastard who always followed you around was also the main boss of Alpha Omega. You could only defeat it with melee or EMPs, being literally the only use case for the EMP in that game, because let's be honest, the EMP was stupid, not good. Now, ray gun drops off in the late 30s. Back in World at War and Black Ops 1, the ray gun was not nearly as good as it currently is in Cold War. In World at War, the ray gun, even Pack-a-Punch, stopped being a one-shot about round 25. And Black Ops 1, it would fall off about round 23 as it would begin to make crawlers then. Even in Black Ops 2, it would fall off horribly at any round past like 30. The VR11 co-op feature. This one I actually had virtually no idea about for like a couple days, but eventually I found it. When playing Call of the Dead in co-op, if one of you has the Pack-a-Punch VR11, and you shoot the other person, they can actually insta-kill zombies for about 10 seconds. Rinse and repeat, you've got yourself a decent strategy. Next we got Black Ops 1, World at War, and Black Ops 2 custom textures. This one is very simple, as it's very common to see in many high rounds gameplay, especially for Black Ops 2 and World at War, to see people using custom textures for weapons and perks to make things look a little different. Free Wonderwaff Shinonuma on the iOS. Now this one is interesting. Back when Call of Duty Zombies came out on iOS all those years ago, when World at War was still fairly relevant and was also the original subtitle, there was a very interesting Easter egg on Shino where you'd have to open all the doors and there'd be a message telling you all areas unlocked, now go find the grave. After that, your knife would be replaced with a shovel, which was actually better than the knife. Then you'd look for Peter McCain's grave, like right here, and you'd dig, and once you got it, you'd get the Wonderwaff for free. That was it. Cold War, far less zombies per round compared to previous games. So, from what I can gather about this, even though I've played Cold War since launch, at least at launch and maybe now, I'm not really sure, Cold War had smaller zombie counts in the earlier rounds than in other Treyarch zombie games like Black Ops 4 or Black Ops 3. There's a lot of math involved for calculating zombies per round that kinda goes over my head, so I think you'll have to take my word a bit on this one. Radio Noctur Untoten. In every single iteration of Noctur Untoten, you can find a radio in the back where the mystery box is, where when you knife it or shoot it, it would start playing various music tracks. In World at War, it would play songs from the soundtrack. In Black Ops 1, it would play songs from the Dead Ops soundtrack mostly, but in Black Ops 3, you can hear several songs from all across Treyarch Zombies. Now, dropping Civil Protector on Margwa. In Shadows of Evil, there was a robot you could call in, similar to Klaus, to help you after you acquired 3 fuses. Known as the Civil Protector, he would run around shooting zombies and even reviving you if you went down. Pretty handy, to be honest. Anyway, if you timed it just right, like right here, if you called in the Civil Protector, it would land on top of the Margwa and insta-kill it. It's actually pretty useful if you could time it right. Now we're moving on to 360 revives, or sometimes called circle revives. Basically what this was really just reviving in a circle, because back in Black Ops 2, reviving was still known to be slow as shit and you can get down pretty easy. So the strategy some people developed to do it was just kind of walk in a circle around reviving someone. That's basically it. Just give you more time before you start getting hit. Now for simple spawn control. I didn't really think I'd hit one that I didn't really know this early, but here we are. My best guess as to what this one pertains to is how it's not particularly hard to control where zombies spawn. It really mostly depends on like what doors you open, what barricades are still built in the area that you're currently in. Director's Cut, Infinite Warfare. This will be the first mention of Infinite Warfare on this list, but it actually will not be the last. Director's Cut was a feature you could unlock in Infinite Warfare by completing all of the 5 main Easter eggs. After you got them all done, you would put them into the soul jar after you completed the End achievement. Afterwards, you would turn it on before you started the game, and when you spawned in, you would have 25,000 points, all of the perks permanently. All the magic weapons would be pack-a-punched once, as well as a lot of other stuff. There are more effects, but I think that's enough to really give you guys a good idea. And you can also do the super Easter egg where you fight Mephistopheles, if you'd want to. But more or less, it was kind of almost like a cheat mode. It was very fun to use, but many saw it as like a cheap way to make the game more replayable. Next, we've got the Die Rise Trample Strat. From what I could find, in Black Ops 2 on Die Rise, you know, the best map, you could build a trap called the Trample Steam. It was essentially used to jump between buildings or to kill zombies. How the strat would usually work is that you would have multiple players place their trample steams around the same area, such as blocking like an elevator entrance in the window behind the buildable table for the trample steam, so as to be really close by so you can keep replacing it. This also worked in solo, but obviously it's not going to be nearly as well considering it's just one trample steam you're going to put down, but it still kind of works. Now, Black Ops 3 jump sliding. Ah, jump sliding. Treyarch, you bastards always patch everything that's fun. Back when Black Ops 3 was still very new, it got patched. I believe it was probably about 2 months or so after the game came out. Many people would actually know this as G-sliding. It was actually a problem that affected multiplayer, which, now that I think about it, that's probably the reason they patched it. You can kinda still do it, though it's nowhere near as effective. You don't get nearly the distance you would have. And it's if you want to try it yourself, you can. It actually works better with controllers sometimes. You basically just jump and then slide about the second you hit the ground, and then jump and then keep doing it. Just rinse it and repeat. Like I said, it's nowhere near as effective as it used to be, but, you know, you could use it if you want to. Now we get on to one of my favorites, Black Ops 2 perma-perks. This one's going to be long, so strap in. I'm sure almost everyone watching this remembers the PhD perma-perk from Buried, which I will show here in a second. It's the example I'm also going to start with. What a perma-perk is in Black Ops 2 is basically a perk that you don't ever have to buy, and which, as the title says, is permanent, sorta. With the PhD perma-perk specifically, what you had to do to acquire it, only on Buried, was you'd have to take critical fall damage, basically that's when your screen went red, and fall a number of times, and eventually you would have a sound effect, a green sparkle, and a character quote to let you know that you had it, and boom, you essentially had PhD in Black Ops 2. Now, for why I said sorta when I mentioned this was permanent. They are permanent, unless you do something specific to make them go away. In PhD's case, it's if you took half of the fall damage you took when you got the perk. Basically enough to have the damage indicator come up, and then you would lose it. There is many other perma-perks. There are way too many to mention just in this section, but a few notable ones were Quick Revive and Jug. Both of them worked the same as the regular perk and could actually stack, at least in Jug's case. Quick Revive, you had to revive someone 15 to 20 times without failing ever. And you lost it if you failed to revive someone. And Jug, you had to die with that Quick Revive 3 times in a row on solo, or take a certain amount of damage, and you would lose it automatically on round 15. There are several others that I can't mention, and I don't want to spend like 10 to 15 minutes on just this section alone, but I might actually make another video. Not anytime soon after this. I'm going to take a long break out of this. On big videos. It's about as good a very interesting topic, so I probably will make another video on it. But for now, that is all for Layer 2. We can now move on to Layer 3. Now on to resets and errors. These are pretty infamous among the zombies community. The ones that come to mind the most when someone mentions these are the countless number of errors and crashes that came from Black Ops 3 and 4. Resets are a bit different in that in all games before Black Ops 3, I believe, each map had a reset, which was basically a time limit or certain stipulation in which the game would either outright crash or reset you back to round 1. These are very integral to the earlier high round zombies community, but sometimes we have a pretty good idea what the reset time is, and other times we only have a guess. Now for the drop/gum cycles, this one's actually pretty simple. In every zombies game, the power-up drops have a cycle. Basically, when you pick up a power-up for the first time, say it's an insta-kill, that power-up will no longer be in the rotation for what power-up you would get next, until the cycle resets after you've gotten all of them, which, at least in older games, would be indicated by you getting 2 of the same power-up, whether it be like right next to each other or soon after. Gum cycles are actually very similar in that once you've gotten a gum out of the gobble gum machine, it would randomly cycle through the other gums until all were used, then start over. There are certain high round strats that involve things such as never moving the box to prevent fire sales from taking up a cycle spot, and not grabbing max ammos on earlier rounds to adjust the cycle slightly. Now, round 100 is impossible on solo Call of the Dead. This one requires some context. Back in 2011-2012, high rounds on Black Ops 1 were still very much in their infancy. People were developing strategies and learning about resets, but Call of the Dead was an interesting case. While on many of the other maps it was easy to get to and probably go past round 100, even solo, but not on Call of the Dead. It is actually the only map in Black Ops 1 where it is impossible to get to round 100 solo. There are 2 or 3 main reasons as to why this is and still will continue to be actually impossible. The first and primary reason is, of course, the reset. The reset for this map was pretty average for most Black Ops 1 maps, being in the ballpark of 70 hours or so. For example, Kino had a reset of about 75, 5 and Ascension were about 70, Shang had a bit less than 70, and so on. The second reason was the map itself and its wonder weapons. The wonder weapons in Call of the Dead were fucking terrible, to put it lightly. The Scavenger and the VR-11 sucked hard in high rounds, and their damage values were just way too low to even be remotely viable most of the time. So those things and a few others are why it is impossible to get to round 100 solo on Call of the Dead. Now for the Black Ops 4 Zombies health cap. This is the first real mention of Black Ops 4 on this list, let's just get it over with. Black Ops 4 was interesting. A lot of people hated it. The game wasn't super spectacular, but there is still some good qualities to it. Anyway, the zombies in Black Ops 4, to the confusion of almost everyone, have a health cap at round 35. Yes, 35. Most regular zombies matches in different games have different caps, but if it exists at all, including the infamous high round health changes done in Cold War, which were eventually reverted and now it's round 55. But anyway, for Black Ops 4 Zombies, this was disappointing, as if the health stops increasing at round 35, the game really begins to drag on in the later rounds, as there's nothing really interesting happening in the later rounds, and that kind of also continued to hurt Black Ops 4's life cycle. Speed Cola speeds up, board up speed. God, that was kind of hard to say. Anyway, this one's very self-explanatory. When you have Speed Cola in any version of Zombies except for Black Ops 2, you would rebuild boards faster, as well as the usual effects of the faster reload. Now for trade strats, this one thankfully is pretty easy to explain. This is a strategy employed by high round players to get wonder weapons from the box, even though they already have one, but the one they have is out of ammo. It's basically just a strategy to get the weapon from the box again to replace the empty one, because if there is no max ammo in sight, that's basically all you're going to be able to do. This strat is basically unused now because of Cold War's ammo boxes though, so it's mostly just on the older CODs. Now for the Paralyzer stops working in the mid-70s, this is also pretty self-explanatory. The infamous wonder weapon from Buried outside the Ray Gun Mark II, of course, was the Paralyzer. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it does significantly slow zombies and eventually kills them. The Paralyzer used to be able to work well past round 70, but after a patch it is no longer possible to kill zombies with it past round 70. It's unfortunate, really. Now for the Shadows of Evil round 15 skip, honestly, this one's really simple. On Shadows of Evil, when starting the game, you can see the Shadow Man on the catwalk above you, and if you shoot him, it will skip you to round 5, then round 10, then eventually round 15, giving you each a few thousand points for the round skipped, and honestly, sometimes it's a pretty good way to just get to a higher round pretty quickly. Now, impossible to beat round 23 on Attack of the Radioactive Thing, first room. In the Infinite Warfare map Attack of the Radioactive Thing, it is literally impossible to get to round 23 in the first room of the map. Now you might be thinking, oh, it's because the weapons suck, but that's actually not the case somewhat. Usually what happens is at some point on round 22, for whatever reason, the game just says it's had it and crashes. That's at least all I could find of it. There's not a whole lot of remaining footage for this, as many of the top holders of the leaderboard of Zombies World Records have privatized their videos for some reason, with only one of the top 2 actually remaining viewable to anybody. C4 spawn blocking on Infinite Warfare. This one's pretty much exactly what it says. If you were to throw C4 on the ground or vent spawns for zombies, they will never spawn there. I know it worked for a while on Spaceland, but I have no idea if it still works or not, and I can't really find any videos about it. But I did find a few Reddit threads about it, and I do somewhat remember doing this myself at least once at some point. Now we can get free perks on Moon with the QED. Anyone who's played Moon is sure to remember the QED, the sometimes useless or deadly or awesome grenade from Moon. Now, the QED has tons of effects. I could not list all of them in this video. But the important ones are it could just drop a perk bottle that when you pick it up would give everybody a random perk, and it could give players a random perk if it was thrown at a perk machine. But the odds for either one of these things happening was never particularly high. Now for unpatching the Solidifier. The Solidifier. Perhaps one of the best wonder weapons in Zombies history, and then they nerfed it into the floor with a patch. Unpatching it is basically taking it back to as close as what it used to be as possible with the current game. Basically, it's just making a way to get more kills with the puddles than you currently can through normal gameplay. Only one player can have the ballistic knife or the crossbow. Yeah, for this entry, I don't really see any evidence of that being true in, like, any game. But what I think this really means is that you should probably really only have one person who has it. Because as I stated before, for the ballistic knife, outside the revive feature, it's not super great, and the crossbow's almost never been good in pretty much any zombies experience it's been in. Now for Black Ops 2 survival mapping, this one's actually pretty interesting. In the span of Black Ops 2's life cycle, we really didn't get all that many traditional survival maps. I mean maps like Farm, Town, Bus Depot, and Nuketown. There are actually a few survival maps that still exist in the files for Black Ops 2. And the grief and turned versions of certain maps, which were mostly finished but never made it to regular survival maps. And of course, modders are coming to quote-unquote save the day with custom-made survival maps, which is not a lot on Black Ops 2. Black Ops 1 and World at War insta-kill rounds 163+. Oh boy, this one's going to require some explaining. To vastly oversimplify, the way zombies' health was calculated was by using a formula. The basic way this worked in WoW and Black Ops 1 is when you start the game, zombies start with 150 health that goes up by 100 every round, making it 950 on round 9. Starting on round 10, it starts to be multiplied by 1.1, and after round 162, the number gets too big for the game to calculate, and on round 163 and every other round after, it resets the zombies back to round 1 health. This is crucial to high round strategies in both those games. Pack-a-punched M27 Law/RPG shot equals 10 ray gun shots in damage. It's pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. The damage values for the Pack-a-punched Law or the RPG would be about the same damage as 10 regular ray gun shots, making them do some pretty decent damage for some time, but I still wouldn't recommend it due to the splash damage. Now for the infamous 8-player Black Ops 2 glitch, there was a glitch in the early days of Black Ops 2 which lets you, as the title suggests, play Black Ops 2 zombies with 8 players. And I don't mean like grief, I mean like actual regular zombies. Basically what you had to do was to set your game to have a max of 1 player, get a second controller, cause the game to lag, kick you back to the main menu, select it, freeze for a second, do some other stuff, and you'd be glitched into a regular zombies lobby with 8 players. Of course, this has not worked for quite some time, but if you are on PC, you can use plutonium and do this artificially nowadays. Man, that section was actually pretty long, but we are still just getting started. Now we're moving on to Layer 4. Carpenter was not added until World at War Derice. Yeah, that's pretty much it, honestly. Carpenter was not in any other World at War map. You can check for yourself, it's not. It was only in Derice, which adds another thing to the list of things that Derice introduced to zombies that are now staples, which is interesting. Now for the Die Rise elevator error, honestly, we can't find anything on this, so if any of you who watch this know anything, please leave a comment. Quadruple points on Noct World at War. Yeah, this just happens when you grab 2 double points in the same time span. Noct is the only map where this glitch is possible. It just stacks the double points so you get quadruple points. That's literally it. Now for Shadows of Evil Infinite Flag ammos, back when Black Ops 3 was brand new, there was a glitch in Shadows of Evil that when performed correctly, when doing the flag step of the Easter egg, you could get infinite max ammos. When you put the flag down, you would let it break, and then put it back down, and grab another max ammo, and rinse and repeat. Yeah, it really was that easy. Now for AI player color priority, the best explanation I can get for this one is possibly how in Black Ops 4 you could have bots that could play with you, and they may have had their specific colors for their score counter, like how on every map before Moon, each player had their own specific colors for their score counter depending on which character they were rather than it being randomized. Now for the meaning of SPH, SPH means seconds per horde, essentially how long it would take you using various strats to kill an entire horde of zombies. Now for Mule Kick for faster trading, my best guess on this one is on a few specific maps, of course your Mule Kick's on them, you would train zombies until you hit a full horde exclusively in that room, then use them as an opportunity to do some trading. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not super certain on this one, but that's about the best I got. Now for the Black Ops 1 box error, this is actually similar to some of the other errors we've mentioned so far. It correlates to the infamous G-spawn error, which, greatly oversimplified, is when the game runs out of available assets and crashes because of it. It can be triggered by many things, such as, in this entry, hitting the box too much, or in other cases, putting down too many bouncing buddies or claymores. Basically, it's too many items for the game to reasonably keep track of, and it hasn't really been an issue since Black Ops 3, or at least I haven't really heard of anything of it being an issue since then, so this is really a problem for like World at War or Black Ops 1. I think Black Ops 2 is this issue too. Now for the Verrucht mixed first room, this is a simple one. This is about how on Verrucht there are 2 spawn points. You either spawn on Quick Revive side or Juggernog side. It's a shame we haven't had a map do this since. It would make a nice interesting change in a newer map to do something like this again. As for the Shangri-La Black Ops 3 reverse CUDA strat, as far as I can tell, this was a strategy in Shangri-La and Black Ops 3 to use the CUDA earlier in the game and just keep looping back and grabbing ammo for it, as the CUDA was a pretty alright wall weapon with a decent ammo supply, at least for an SMG. Now for refined movement, this entry is basically about the fact that to successfully get to high rounds, you have to have refined movement because one wrong move could spell the end of the run. Very similar to speedrunning as a matter of fact. Now, Moon Astronaut Excavator Trapping. This is very simple. On Moon, at least in Black Ops 1, I don't think it works in Black Ops 3 to my knowledge, but you would basically allow one of the excavators to destroy a tunnel, take the astronaut to the area between the 2 tunnels, and wait for the other excavator to begin to go down, and get out of there before the astronaut can, and boom, he is trapped. Now, Fast Ray No Macro. Basically, that's just how to fire the ray gun really fast without using a macro. That's it. Now for the proper usage of the jet gun, you don't use it. No, I'm kidding. Basically how you are quote-unquote supposed to use the jet gun is actually kind of like how you'd use the paralyzer. You'd use small short bursts of using it so that it lasts as long as possible. But I wouldn't recommend using it still, the jet gun's kind of trash. And now for the first entry taken by Ghosty.
The no-spawn system of Verrucht in World at War is a really obscure one that we couldn't really find a lot of information about. It could simply be referring to the different spawn system from every other map, the split spawn, but don't take my word for it.
Now on to canceling Carpenters. As much as this sounds like a bad Twitter post, it could be useful for high rounds gameplay. Basically, from what I can dig up, on Black Ops 3 you could actually prevent Carpenter from spawning, as, due to the way the Carpenters work in Black Ops 3, if you have 5 or more open barricades in the map, it would eventually cause a Carpenter to spawn, but if you have less than 5, or if you have them boarded up, it won't spawn at all in the cycle, as I mentioned earlier. Now for the Origins tank strat, basically exactly what it says. You would use the tank on Origins to stay relatively safe on top of it, and just continue to shoot zombies off of it, like I am doing here. Now, as for advanced spawn control, yeah, this is just like the simple spawn control from a few layers ago. I have no clue what this entry is about specifically. So, if any of y'all know, just let us know in the comments. And lastly, for layer 4, the DAT strat on Verrucht. Technically speaking, there is not really just one solid answer I can give for this entry. The DAT strat can vary between people, but usually it involves the traps in Verrucht in some way, and is usually a pretty safe strat. Damn, somehow that was easier than the last layer, but now it is time for layer 5. Now onto config editing. This one is about how in most every Call of Duty, not all of them, but a majority of them, you do not have access to a console. The console can be used for many things, like commands that you could load a map with, give yourself God mode, change settings and FOV, and tons of other stuff. The way to get around this is to edit what is known as a config file. It's basically a file that would work in a similar fashion to the console, except you can access it much easier. You could put keybinds for certain things, such as, for instance, binding G to give you God mode, or binding another key to change your FOV. Usually in the case of zombies, it is used for FOV changing, or adjusting certain graphical settings, or, hell, having a keybind to instantly load a map in case you have to restart it. Now for PC broken backwards speed in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, this one's actually really interesting. In Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, the backwards movement speed is noticeably slower on PC than it is on consoles. The reason as to why is honestly beyond me, but as you can see from this Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 footage, you do move faster when walking backwards on console than you do on PC. It is honestly still a mystery to this day as to why this is at all a thing, but, you know, it's still interesting. Now, for missed insta-kill rounds, it is, through either a glitch or some other means, possible to miss or skip insta-kill rounds, which I mentioned earlier. Some high rounds have actually unfortunately been unvalidated in this way and removed. Next we have World at War dogs break health regen. It's pretty self-explanatory. The dogs in World at War will break your health regen sometimes. Even though your screen may recover from red, your health may still not regen, causing sometimes an unfortunate one-hit down. Now for the G-spawn because of the baby gun, this one's easier. As I mentioned earlier, G-spawn is an error that happens because the number of entities is too much for the game to handle. This is basically just caused by the, and this is the actual name of the wonder weapon, 3179 JGB 215, better known as the baby gun from Shangri-La. Something about the action of shrinking zombies like that doesn't help the entity number any.
Death machine cancelling could be some sort of glitch to cancel out the power-up from spawning entirely, but it could also be referring to how in Black Ops 1 you could cancel out the animation of the death machine by simply swapping weapons quickly after picking it up.
Teleporting to Earth resets the drop cycle on Moon. It's exactly what it says. On Moon, when you teleport back to Area 51 and you return to the infinite round there, like you don't have a round, you survive as long as you can, the drop cycle completely resets regardless of what you were currently at. Now for the fast knife, it's exactly what it sounds like. A fast knife. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this entry. Just knife fast, that's literally all I got. Strafe jumping. This one's more or less the same as the alpha strafe, which we have not talked about yet, but it's essentially just jumping while strafing to get some really impressive movement. Now for ZWR missing custom map leaderboards from 2019, this one isn't too hard to explain either. Back in 2019, Zombies World Records introduced, after way too long, custom Zombies map leaderboards. When it was first introduced, it had a small handful of maps on it, and abruptly out of nowhere, some of the leaderboards just weren't there anymore, like they were never there. Then they came back, but all the people that were on them were no longer there, and we don't really know the reason for this till this day.
World at War Verrucht Jug doesn't increase health, but gives insane health regen, refers to when drinking Juggernog on Verrucht in its original form back in World at War, it only gives you 160 HP, but you actually get to start regaining HP after 0.5 seconds. It's a pretty strong variation of the perk, since the zombies deal 20 to 40 points of HP, meaning the last zombie would most likely not be able to kill you.
Now for canceling Nova 6 crawlers on Kino, I'm sure some people have actually done this by accident, but essentially in Black Ops 1 there are invisible lines, we'll call them, that when a player passes them, after power is turned on, it basically turns on the Nova Crawler spawns for that area. But if a player were to not step over them, the Nova Crawlers would never spawn there, thereby canceling the Nova Crawler spawns. Now for Black Ops 1 console frame lag, as far as I can tell, this is about how, we'll say poorly optimized, some zombies maps were on consoles at the time. Most notably when attempting high rounds on more complicated maps like Ascension and many others on Black Ops 1. It's mostly due to all of the effects that goes into when a zombie dies, like blood effects and the ragdolling.
The ray gun not in box until moved once in Black Ops 1 The Reese should be a pretty straightforward one. Basically, after some time when The Reese came out, people created a rumor that the ray gun would not be obtainable until the box changed positions. It isn't true, and the odds should be the same as every other map, although when I play it, the odds seem significantly lower. Not sure why. The Black Ops 2 round 255 cap simply refers to the fact that the game caps on that very round. While you can win the round and go to what would be round 256, the game will still display round 255 on the screen and will play just the same. I believe Black Ops 3 also did this, and possibly still does.
Dead Ops Arcade fixes PC backspeed. This one's very interesting. It is actually true as well. If you would happen to load up Dead Ops Arcade, then quit it, and then load into like another map or something, you would have the same backspeed on PC as you would on console, which, as stated earlier, was much faster than PC for some reason. Why this fixes it, I have no idea. Now for the unupgraded fast sword from Shadows of Evil, from what little information I could find on this, it is possibly beneficial on Shadows of Evil to not upgrade the sword but leave it as its base version. It attacks faster, I suppose. Well, this is definitely getting more and more obscure, but we will press on. Now we're going down to layer 6.
The 3 guns on World at War glitch is a pretty simple entry. Even though you cannot get mule kick on World at War, there was a somewhat simple glitch that actually allowed you to carry 3 weapons. And unlike mule kick, you actually get to keep the weapons in case you go down too.
Now for extended resets, this one's actually interesting. Essentially how this works is, as we've said before, each map has a reset time, but it is actually possible to extend that reset time. All you have to do is remove entities. Some ways of doing that include opening doors and anything else that would remove something from the map.
Transit fog removing refers to how you could actually look around transit without all the annoying fog. It was done in theater mode, with a sort of a glitch, by placing a dolly camera in the power room and leaving through the outhouse. Because it was only available in theater mode, it was mostly just useful for Easter egg hunts. On top of that, the fog in transit was actually in the game due to hardware limitations of consoles at the time. Interestingly enough, you could also remove the fog by editing the fog textures to make them transparent, which doesn't seem to impact the game performance. So it is still odd to this day that Treyarch decided to make that map so unbearable. Oh, the potential you had, Transit.
Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 round 200 speedruns. There is a category for both Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 on Zombies World Records that are for round 200 speedruns. The reason this is here is because there are very few people who can actually get to round 200 on those games, let alone speedrunning them. God bless anybody who spent the time doing that. Now for mule kick removal for extended reset, as far as I can tell, this would be like the extended resets I mentioned a few entries ago, except with the removal of mule kick, which I personally have no idea how to do or how anyone else does it. This is borderline a complete mystery. I have no idea about this one.
The Origins unbeatable round 147 refers to back when Origins released in Black Ops 2. There was a world record for high rounds that was, well, you guessed it, round 147. This was due to an animation error that would crash the map at 25 hours in, and there was no way to avoid it. Because the world record was held at round 147, that's where possibly the unbeatable comes from. The round is in fact beatable, as a runner called Tidy Barbecue has gone as far as to round 150, although of course, because of the error, this run is extremely luck-based.
Now for Fire and Lightning Staffs crash the game on high rounds in Black Ops 2. This one's pretty much explained in the title. Both the Fire and the Lightning Staff, due to how they work and all their effects and things, will crash the game on Black Ops 2. The Wind and the Ice Staff, perfectly fine. In fact, most people use the Ice Staff to a certain point when getting to high rounds.
The Tunnel 11 BDSM strat was basically an obscure high round tech that would allow you to trap the astronauts so you could keep the hacker to hack drops. There's a video showcasing the tech on YouTube in case you're curious, but at the time that we're recording this, it has about 800 views. Yeah, that obscure.
Now for killing floor spawns causes error, what little I can find about this indicates that, as the title says, if you were to kill too many zombies that spawn from the floor on certain maps, it would just eventually cause an error. As far as I know, we don't really know the reason for this. It's just probably an entity thing again.
Trap stopped working. Black Ops 2 round 156 unpatched PC is one of those entries that you could just understand from the title alone. After round 156, traps just don't work in Black Ops 2 on PC. Fun fact, the jet gun also stops working after this round on PC as well.
Now the hybrid trade trap strat on Derice, I can't really find much of anything on this one, unfortunately. My best guess is that it's a combination of a few different strats for Derice that involve the use of the trap below the catwalk and a trade out strat.
The complexity of Call of the Dead solo high rounding relates to something we talked about up there in the Iceberg. Because of how hard it is to play this map solo, expect to calculate damage, analyze weapon charts, and overall just study the map a lot in order to reach high rounds. It's just really hard to do, and it takes a lot of time to learn how to solo it.
Well, I'll be honest, if Misery didn't explain some of these to me, and without Ghosty's help, I would know just about nothing past Layer 5. Anyway, now we're moving on to Layer 7, only a few left to go.
The World at War has half reset times on PC entry. It's simple, but still relatively unknown. The reset timers for World at War are usually around 90 hours until it actually does reset, but for some unknown reason on PC the reset timers seem to be much shorter. For example, the Shino Newman map resets as low as 30 hours on PC, while on console it would go up to 90 hours.
Now for Shinonuma high round record not beaten since 2015, this one's literally just a fact. That the current world record for Black Ops 1 Shinonuma of round 202 has not been beaten since 2015. In fact, it still remains unbeaten as of the production of this video. Gum Dispenser's Moving Like Box. Oh, this one's a good one, and I actually know this one. Back when Black Ops 3 came out, the way gobblegum machines worked was actually similar to the box. There would be one active gobblegum machine in the map, and it would move to different places like the box. It was both a weird and horrible idea, which is why in an update on March 21st of 2016, they removed it and just made all gobblegum machines active at all times. Now for explosives crash games on high rounds, it does what it says on the tin. Explosives of any kind are very risky to use on high rounds for several reasons. Chief among them being that they have a good chance to crash your game when you use them. Mostly due to like the effects of the explosion and many other things, kinda similar to the G-Spawn error we talked about earlier. This has mostly been fixed after the more recent Call of Duty games, but you can still refuse to use them on high rounds if you want to. Now for Noct World at War First Room Solo Bleedout Strat, as long as that title is, from what I could find for this one, basically it was a way that people would take a break from doing high rounds in First Room, to where the last zombie would either never bleed out, or would take a very long time to bleed out in solo. Now for Impossible to Take Sleepers on World at War Co-op. I can't really dig up too much for this one, unfortunately, but from what I can guess, the way that zombies function on co-op makes it not possible to take what is known as a sleeper, which essentially a sleeper was when one person would hold a zombie forever in some way, usually by perpetually rebuilding a barrier that a zombie is behind. That's from what I know in Black Ops 1 anyway. I don't really know about World at War specifically.
The World at War Reese Wunderwaffe, not removing junk, but instead stopping your health regen permanently, is a glitch that you might not want to come across. If you happen to shock yourself with the Wunderwaffe back in the Reese in World at War, you could kiss goodbye to your fast health regen. It wouldn't remove the Juggernaut icon from your HUD, but it's like you didn't have it. So 12 years later, and the glitch is still there.
Next is the Kino Trade strat, just as fast as the Fire Trap strat. This is pretty self-explanatory. Both strats are around the same amount of time to do. Though it wasn't always this way, it used to be that the Fire Trap strat was actually much faster than that and was the fastest strat for Kino for some time, but now of course that is no longer the case. Now for the Chino Dione Black Ops 3 child abuse streams. Yeah, unfortunately this one is true. Back in the life cycle of Black Ops 3, where there was a smaller streamer known as Chino Dione. He was never a huge mainstream streamer or anything, anyway, but he on stream multiple times abused his children. Of course I will not show this, and I'm not even sure the videos still exist or not. To my knowledge though, he is serving a prison sentence for it, so there is I guess about as close to a happy ending as you're gonna get for this entry. Now for Moon Zombie Spawn Canceling, there is a particular strategy on Moon, which when done correctly and is surprisingly complicated for some reason, there would be certain areas where zombies would just straight up not spawn. And you could use those to your advantage. Now for Black Ops 1, custom mapping is possible. This one's also pretty self-explanatory. For a good amount of time, many people thought it would be nearly impossible to make custom maps for Black Ops 1 due to the fact that we did not get modding tools like in World at War and Black Ops 3, but of course, as usual, people found a way to make maps anyway, and we have at least a few maps for Black Ops 1. Now for the last one on this layer, denizen canceling. It's really just various ways to prevent denizens from spawning in the fog on transit in Black Ops 2. That's literally this whole entry. Well, I'm surprised I actually knew a few of these. We are almost at the bottom. It only gets more obscure from here. 3 layers left, but now we're moving on to layer 8. Now for the Durice No Power Co-op 100 Possible Solo Isn't, which is a hell of a name, it is theorized that with the correct strategies and skill, it is possible to get to round 100 with no power on Durice, only in co-op. It is impossible, as far as anybody knows, or if anybody's tried, to get to the same round in solo, because, well, let's be honest, Durice is difficult. Now is removed world records. The best guess I have for this one is that a few years ago on Zombies World Records, the leaderboards actually used to go to the top like 20 or 25. I remember I actually had a couple records on there back in World War II. Anyway, instead of it being 10, later they would change that, and also I'm pretty sure that like it was a year or two ago whenever ZWR was transitioning over to a new site where some world records were probably removed or lost.
The ZWR 200 Club could relate to the group of players that actually managed to reach round 200 or further. Most players that manage to beat a world record can be found on zwr.gg, and that's short for Zombies World Records. It's a website that lists the leaderboards for pretty much every world record category out there for zombies, such as no power, high rounds, purist, dead ops, for every different game, etc.
Now for sleep deprivation to win co-op games, this is for the madmen who want to get high rounds with records without sleeping, which is, I'm sorry, is very ill-advised. Considering it is very common for high rounds to go on for well over 48 hours, you can see why that would be a really bad idea. Now for illegal textures, I can't really find anything on this one, but my best guess is that there are textures in the game which are normally not possible to see or get, and if you have them it is quote-unquote illegal.
The camera rotation limit is one of the most bizarre entries, but I found it to be so interesting when I found it, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But basically, it was first found on Black Ops 2 Nuketown. It became a little more known when it happened in Black Ops 3 Origins, due to, Origins being much more successful of a map. But essentially, if you turned your camera much more to the right than you did to the left, eventually you would not be able to turn right anymore, until you turn to the left again. I think it's pretty funny. It caught a lot of people off guard, but definitely bizarre.
Window setting on 5. This one's actually kind of obscure, but basically how this worked was that on certain rounds you would, quote, set zombie spawns to come from certain windows by repairing certain windows. This would usually complement a trade-out strategy of some kind on 5, and isn't really useful in a whole lot of other maps. Next is the Chow Crash incident, which I have absolutely no idea what this one's referring to. I hate that I have to say that so often in these lower tiers, but sometimes information is just literally not available. I looked for this myself for over 2 hours and found pretty much nothing. Once again, if anybody watching this knows anything about it, please let me know in the comments. Now we've got secret strats not shared by players. This one's pretty simple. There are likely tons of strategies that players use that no one really knows about. No, yeah, that's literally this whole entry. Now for monkey round forcing on Ascension, this is pretty much exactly what it says, like many of the other entries on this. It is possible to force at least the first monkey round. I don't know about the other ones, but probably. Monkeys don't actually spawn in until you bought your first perk, meaning if you turn power on and just don't buy a perk, monkeys technically won't spawn. And you could probably hold off on buying your first perk for a little while, but if you're in solo, you probably already bought Quick Revive.
The Pack-a-Punch Arisaka entry is one of the short, simple ones, but it is interesting. Because the maps that you can get this weapon in, you cannot Pack-a-Punch the Arisaka, but with the help of PC commands, players have managed to Pack-a-Punch it in their Rees. It works exactly like a Pack-a-Punch Car 98K, and it even changes its name to the Eviscerator. No one knows why it has a Pack-a-Punch counterpart, since you were not even supposed to upgrade it, but it is theorized it was simply cut from development. The Black Ops 1 co-op game pausing is a glitch of sorts that I'd really rather call a strat on Black Ops 1 PC, where if you and your co-op buddy open the task manager and suspend the Black Ops 1 task at the same time, that would actually pause the game. And if you resumed at the same time, yep, game is unpaused. This is showcased on a YouTube video by Strat and was discovered as late as 2020. That's nearly 10 years after the original game's release. That is crazy.
Now for the Alpha Strafe. Alpha Strafing is essentially a pretty difficult to consistently repeat movement tech in the older CODs. It's basically side strafing, but a bit more difficult to do. The Nuketown 210H reset, as far as I can tell, I think Nuketown has a reset time of 210 hours, which is absolutely ridiculous for a zombies map, as more often than not, the reset time is in the vicinity of 70 to 100 hours. And once again, I could be wrong about this, so feel free to correct me in the comments. Now the last one for this layer, Black Ops 1 Dog Tracker / Health Bar, I have no clue. I really can't find anything on this one. This is one of the few ones that I have literally zero idea about whatsoever. I've looked everywhere and I can find basically nothing. I hate that I have to say that again, but it's this low, I'm not sure what I expect. Well, that was interesting. I knew literally none of these before making this video. This video is teaching me about as much as it's teaching you. Well, We're almost done. Moving on to layer 9. Alright, now on to Adderall abuse for high rounds. I'm willing to bet this one's mostly a joke. But the effects of Adderall, for those who don't know, are usually for people like me, who have ADHD. It helps us focus better, among many other things. It's basically implying that abusing Adderall would help with high rounds, and I'm just gonna tell you right now, don't ever fucking do this. Just don't do that. Now for Vings of Oblivion, yes, it's 2 V's, not a W, I'm not really sure why. From what I can tell, this references an older high rounds player known as Wings of Oblivion. It was found out that he was cheating his high rounds, and he was vilified by the community for it, for obvious reasons. And I, once again, don't really know if the 2 V's are actually how he made his name or whatever, but...
The mystery of the unpatched jet gun not working past round 156 is pretty much what the title says. Jet gun simply does not work past round 156. And this creates a lot of controversy because people are not sure if it is a glitch or if it's supposed to work like that, making the jet gun just not have infinite damage like a lot of players say. And since the reason why it went unpatched was never cleared up, creates a mystery surrounding it.
Now, the ray gun crosshair color exposing cheaters, this one's very interesting. Back in Black Ops 1, when you would pack-a-punch the ray gun, the crosshair on either the screen or the gun, I actually can't remember right now, would change color. If it didn't, or if it wasn't the color it was supposed to be, that's how you know they were cheating. That's literally how this whole thing goes.
The black screen after 25 days and 25 more days on black screen entry, it just refers to exactly what it says. All the zombies games, after 25 days open, black screen. That's due to an overflow with the game. And 25 more days and the game would on black screen. There's no reason why they do it. There's no reason why they haven't patched it. It just works like that. It is still a mystery. The Raven the Redwoods suicide strat is a strat that pretty much is done by 2 players killing themselves over and over, as player 1 uses the shovel charm while reviving. The shovel charm kills nearby zombies, and that would mean you would save a lot of ammo instead of just having to use traps or, well, fight for a max ammo. Some of the community does not find this strat to be very fair, while others say is it a legitimate strat to run, so it is a bit controversial.
Now for the bar strat on Transit, from what I can actually tell about this one, it's just a strat that had to do with being in the bar in the town section of Transit. That's pretty much it.
The King Jack bribe to fail World's First 200 in 2013 is such an obscure entry that involves King Jack, which is a player that goes for high round records. And it was just a little rumor created back then, but basically King Jack was the first player to beat 200 rounds in the race. He managed to reach 198 rounds back in 2012, but fell short due to a reset. A theory was created around him that he was bribed to just never complete it. I'm guessing to allow other players to achieve it instead. If the bribe was simply not real or if he didn't take it, it is unknown.
Now for custom patch exposed by perk drink animation, this one is insanely obscure, which explains why it is so low on the Iceberg. But basically, the perk drinking animation has the cap of the perk bottle go off to the right, but certain custom patches cause it to kinda go wherever. Now for fast cock manual do not research, ironically enough this is the only one I know from this layer or the last one. There's literally an inside joke about this tweet. Yeah, that's literally it. This is the whole entry. Now for the last one, Transit Church 30 speedrun strat. So there was a glitch that allowed you to skip rounds by going to the church in Transit. The round would skip because all the zombies would despawn and there was no spawn points in there. It was fixed by adding 2 spawns near the church, but this can still be taken advantage of since it makes the spawn of the zombies really fast and helps in world record runs. Well, that's it for layer 9. Let's go ahead and move on to the last layer, layer 10.
The Verruct DAT Strat 5.0 is a strat using the DAT gun on Verruct, and there's multiple versions of it. And this is 5.0, done by Strat, ironically, and it claims it could be a new unofficial world record.
Now for the knocked Black Ops 1 insta-kill round strat, I have no idea what this is talking about. I cannot find anything indicating that there was a different strat for Black Ops 1 knocked than any of the other maps that have insta-kill rounds on Black Ops 1. Now the Shangri-La round 200 in 2015. From what I can gather, there was an alleged video that showcased someone getting to round 200 in Shang all the way back in 2015. I cannot find any evidence of said video, and as of writing this, the only round 200 plus Shang record that exists is the #1 record for it on Zombie World Records, and that was only done last year.
The Oxygen Virtual Machine incident refers to Oxygen, which was a Black Ops 1 player that beat a world record for 91 rounds in Call of the Dead. Now, Oxygen was not very fond of the 25-day black screen we talked about earlier, and so he played on a virtual machine so he could entirely avoid it. And this was very controversial. It created an outrage in the community, arguing whether this should be allowed in future runs or not, but that's pretty much what the incident was.
Now for Noah J, is the Zombies God verified? No. Alright, well, that's the entire Iceberg. Jesus, this video is long. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, here's some credits along with a lot of outtakes from me flubbing it up most of the game. Now for the fast cock. Now for the custom patch exposed by Perk Drink animation. This one is insanely obscure, which explains why it is so low on the Iceberg. But basically, the perking. Now for monkey round forcing on Ascension, this is pretty much exactly what it says. It is possible to force at least the monkey. At least the monkey? Now for the hybrid trade trap. Hybrid trade trap strat on Derice. Oh, that'll be good for later. The Papa Punch? What the fuck is Papa Punch? Speed Cola, fuck. The Verruct mixed first room. This is a simple one. This is how on Verruct there are 2 spawn points. The spawn point on the side of the 2 spawn points. Quick revive side. Jiminy Christmas. Speed Cola speeds up board up speed. The VR11 co-op feature. This one I actually had no idea about for a while, but when playing the call? Papa Punch on damn it, I did it again, fuck!